Samuel Halden was dragged out of his pickup in handcuffs, face down on hot Florida asphalt, cheek pressed to the hood, flashing lights strobing red and blue across his eyes. "I didn't do it!" He thrashed once, twice. The cuffs snapped tighter. Neighbors stared from porches. Phones out. Filming, whispering, judging. Inside the white clapboard house behind him, the kitchen reeked of bleach. And something else. Metallic, heavy. Wrong. A detective stepped out the front door. He didn't look at Samuel. He just nodded once at the officers. "Take him." Samuel kicked at gravel. "I didn't kill her! Richard, tell them!" On the lawn, a man clutched a Bible to his chest. Soot-black suit. Eyes rimmed red. "Pastor Richard Halden." His lips trembled. He shook his head slowly. He didn't speak. The squad car door slammed. Samuel vanished behind glass. Pause for a second. Who do you think did it? If you've already picked a suspect, hold that thought. You might change your mind before this is over. 48 hours earlier. Willow Key, Florida. Salt in the air. Palmettos hissing in the breeze. Sunday sunlight spilling through stained glass. Calvary Grace Church swelled with hymn and heat. Richard stood at the pulpit, shoulders squared, voice smooth as varnish. People leaned forward to catch every word. Evelyn Halden sat in the front pew. Ivory dress. Pearl studs. Perfect posture. Perfect smile. Their 5 kids flanked her, oldest to youngest, like notes on a staff. Polite, pressed. A photo you'd frame. The Haldens were the town's picture. The couple everyone copied. Anniversaries, bake sales, hospital visits. They were there for all of it. And standing in the back, late as usual, was Samuel. Wrinkled t-shirt, oil on his jeans, eyes rimmed with a long night. He didn't sing. He didn't kneel. He watched. Richard's sermon slid from grace to grit. "Betrayal," he said softly. "A wound that bleeds without a blade." Heads bowed. Amens hummed. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Just a flicker. Then the smile returned. After service, lines formed. Hands shaken. Babies blessed. 1,000 small devotions. "Good to see you, Sam," Richard said at last when the crowd had thinned. Hand outstretched. Brother to brother. Samuel took it. Held too long. Eyes dark. "You gonna keep pretending?" he murmured. Richard's smile didn't move. "Pretending about what?" Samuel's gaze slid to Evelyn. She laughed with the deacon's wife. It sounded fine. It sounded brittle. "About family," Samuel said. He let go. He left. Evelyn's laugh stopped. Her eyes skipped over to Richard. He nodded once. She turned away. Nothing else happened. Not then. Monday. The air felt heavy. Beach tourists swarmed the boardwalk, but Willow Key had eyes on the Halden house. Evelyn shopped at the market. Bread, lemons, a flat of bottled water. She passed the hardware aisle. Paused. Looked at duct tape. Looked away. A man 2 rows over bought heavy contractor bags. Bleach. A hacksaw blade. He wore a ball cap low. He paid cash. He left. The cashier would remember the cap, not the face. On her way out, Evelyn caught her reflection in the market's glass. She adjusted one pearl. Smoothed a crease. Exhaled. At home, she unpacked in a clean, bright kitchen. White tile, gold faucet, a corkboard with school photos and choir schedules. She opened her laptop. She stared at an email. It was short. Clinical. Different fonts from different labs, copy-pasted into one thread. The subject line, follow-up results. She closed the laptop. She pressed her palms flat to the counter. Don't cry, she told herself. Not today. Someone knocked at the back door. 2 quick taps. A rhythm she recognized. Just a second, she called. When she opened it, no one stood there. Only a plain manila envelope on the mat. No name. No return address. She picked it up with shaking fingers. She didn't open it. Not yet. She slid the envelope into the junk drawer. She washed her hands too long. She dried them twice. The house settled around her with tiny pops and clicks. Old wood. Old ghosts. Tuesday morning. A storm rolled in off the Gulf, low and ugly. Clouds stacked like bruises. The air went dim. Richard brewed coffee. Evelyn sliced lemons. The knife flashed. He glanced at her shoulders. They looked narrower than yesterday. He poured a cup. Busy day? He asked. Just errands, she said. The youngest, Michael, ran in, backpack unzipped, shoes untied. He hugged his father's waist. He hugged his mother's hip. He stole a lemon slice and winced at the bite. Richard ruffled his hair. Shoes, he said. Backpack, Evelyn added. They were a duet again. It sounded real. It was muscle memory. After school drop-off, Evelyn stopped by the church office. She left a casserole for a woman in hospice. She scheduled a choir rehearsal. She hugged a teenager who just got her braces off. She was good at this. She always had been. Back home, the storm cracked open. Thunder crawled low and long. Rain came down in sheets. Evelyn opened the junk drawer. She pulled out the manila envelope. She broke the seal. Upstairs, a phone vibrated on silent. Downstairs, the front door latch clicked softly. Somewhere in the house, floorboards sighed. The power flickered once, twice. Held. She read the page. Her breath stuttered. Her eyes blurred. It wasn't new news. Not to her. But seeing it in print again still felt like a fall. She slid the paper back into the envelope. She tucked it under the sink. Behind multi-purpose cleaner and a box of gallon bags. She washed her hands again. Tuesday night? The rain stopped. The world smelled like wet leaves and hot metal. The Halden house glowed warm in the dark. Neighbors watched through lace curtains. Not because they were nosy, because they were used to it. The town lived on routine. At 10:07 p.m., a camera picked up a shape moving along the side yard fence. Hood up, shoulders hunched. Too tall to be a teenager. At 10:11 p.m., the back porch light turned on. A smudge flickered in the glass. Then nothing. At 10:19 p.m., a truck idled at the corner. Headlights off. Engine low. A neighbor glanced at it through rain-streaked blinds. Looks like Sam's, she muttered to her husband. Don't start, he said. He turned up the TV. At 10:27 p.m., the Halden's doorbell chimed. One ring, then another. Then silence. At 10:34 p.m., the power blinked once. Once only. Long enough to freeze clocks and unsettle hearts. At 10:51 p.m., a storm drain on Magnolia Lane swallowed something that bumped against its grate. It lodged. It moved again. Gone. At 11:12 p.m., a truck pulled away from the curb. Headlights on now. Slow. Steady. A dog barked. A baby cried. The night closed back over itself and pretended nothing had happened. Wednesday morning started wrong. Richard called the school. Evelyn didn't come home, he said. Maybe she went to her sister's, the secretary offered. She would have texted, he said. He called the hospital. No Evelyn. He called Samuel. No answer. He called the sheriff's office. They came fast. They always do when the person calling is the pastor. 2 patrol cars. One unmarked sedan. Detective Nora Vance stepped out into bright post-storm light. She took in the lawn, the porch, the welcome mat with the little anchor on it. She walked inside. The house was clean, immaculate, too neat for real life. Tell me about last night, she said. Richard's voice shook. He was good at shaking. He had comforted so many people that grief lived in his bones. We prayed with the kids, watched a movie, he said. She took a bath. I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, she was gone. Any fights? Nora asked. Not lately, he said. He looked at his hands. He made his mouth small. He swallowed. Nora nodded slowly. She noticed the faint chemical scent under the citrus cleaner. She noticed a scuff on the baseboard near the pantry door. She noticed nothing else. Not yet. They canvassed the block. A neighbor said she heard the Halden doorbell around 10:30. Another swore she saw someone moving along the fence. A third decided she had definitely seen Samuel's truck idling at the corner. Definitely. Probably. Maybe. At midday, a city worker swept leaves from the storm drain on Magnolia Lane. He gagged. He called it in. The canal behind the baseball diamonds turned ugly by 2 p.m., a sheen on the surface. The bobbing edge of something black. A heavy contractor bag split by pressure and time. The dive team went in without looking at the sky. No one looks at the sky on days like this. They brought up 3 bags, then 5, then 7. Detective Nora Vance closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, the world had sharpened. Lines got harder. Edges grew teeth. Don't touch the knots, she told the techs. Don't talk to anyone you don't have to. The coroner's people moved carefully. The bags were heavy. The contents heavier. By dusk, Nora had a name for the victim. Evelyn Halden, pastor's wife. Beloved. Dismembered. She called Richard. He collapsed to the kitchen floor, keening into his sleeves. The kids cried upstairs. The house felt thin. Samuel stood on the edge of the yard outside the tape. He didn't come closer. He smoked a cigarette down to the filter. He ground it into the mulch. He watched. A deputy watched him back. If you're still watching, quick gut check. Who looks guilty right now? Samuel. With the truck and the temper? Or someone else you're not ready to name yet? Drop your guess, then keep going. The next 5 minutes matter. Evidence started to crowd the room. A neighbor's doorbell cam caught a hooded figure on the Halden side, yard at 10:07 p.m. The same camera caught the shape again at 10:11 p.m. Still hooded. Still faceless. The church parking lot camera showed Samuel's truck entering at 8:43 p.m. He visited often. He never stayed long. The market's security footage from Monday showed a customer in a ball cap, buying heavy contractor bags, bleached duct tape, and a single hacksaw blade. The cashier couldn't remember his face, but she remembered the hands. Strong, a pale scar across one knuckle. Samuel had scars. Everyone knew that. He'd fallen off a roof once. He'd lost a fight twice. Detective Vance didn't say the words out loud. Confirmation bias. She wrote them small in her notebook. They searched Samuel's truck. Found nothing at first. Then a tech slid his gloved hand under the driver's seat and came back with a swab-veined pink. A test popped. Human blood. Further testing would say the rest. They found a receipt crumpled in the cup holder. The market. Monday night. 9:12 p.m. Contractor bags. Bleach. Duct tape. Hacksaw blade. Samuel stared at the paper like it was written in another alphabet. I bought brake cleaner. Not this, I didn't. He stopped. He shut his eyes. Where were you Tuesday night? Nora asked. Here and there, he said. Be here, she said. Or be in a cell. I was at the marina. Then at Mickey's. Ask anyone. We will, she said. They did. The bartender said Samuel left before 10. The marina night watch said he never saw him. A gas station clerk thought he sold Samuel a bottle of water at 10:40 p.m. Or maybe it was Thursday. He couldn't swear. The town pulled out its magnifying glasses and guesses. 1,000 tiny certainties hardened into one loud opinion. Samuel did it. The Halden kids moved through the house like satellites off their axis. Richard floated among them weightless. He filled cups. He took phone calls. He talked to God in a voice too soft to hear. People came in waves. They dropped casseroles on the counter. They hugged too long. They cried too hard. God sees, an old deacon whispered to Richard. Richard nodded as if that gave him oxygen. Samuel stood across the street. He didn't cross over. He didn't eat. He didn't go home. He looked at the kitchen window and saw the silhouette of his brother. He lifted one hand. He dropped it. Night sank early. Morning makes the sun lazy. Thursday morning, Detective Vance walked the Halden kitchen again. Tidily. Grout. Baseboards. Gleaming. Too clean. She crouched by the pantry door and stared at a place where the white paint looked faintly newer. Just a shade. A little too satin. She held her pen up as a ruler. Noted the height. Wrote it down. Stood. She opened the pantry. Lined baskets. Canned tomatoes with labels facing out. Spice rack alphabetized. On the top shelf behind a cake stand, she found a microfiber cloth still damp. Citrus. And something chemical that prickled the nose. She bagged it. Under the sink, behind the cleaning bottles, she found a manila envelope. No name. No return address. Inside, a letter. Black text. Numbers, percentages. A familiar logo. 2, actually, different labs. She read the first line. Her face didn't change. She read the second. Then the third. She slid the letter back into the envelope. She sealed it as best she could. She wrote nothing in her notebook about it on that page. She turned a page and wrote something else entirely. Sometimes you hold a fuse in your hand and pretend it's not burning. Pastor Halden, she called. Richard appeared in the doorway. Eyes red, tie askew, the Bible still in his hand. Do you mind if we collect a few more items? She asked. Take whatever you need, he said. His voice frayed at the edge. It sounded like a man trying to practice forgiveness and not quite getting there. Thank you, she said. She glanced at his knuckles. No fresh cuts. One pale scar. Old. He noticed her noticing. He folded his hands. She bagged the cloth. She bagged the envelope. She left the house as the sky went the white of a scraped knee. Outside, a deputy held up his phone. Lab rushed the first sample from the truck, he said quietly. Prelim says the blood's Evelyn's. Nora let the air out through her nose. Okay, she said. They picked up Samuel at 4:12 p.m. He was at Mickey's bar staring into a warm beer, eyes somewhere between sleep and scream. The room went quiet when the deputies stepped inside. You can always tell when the law walks in. The air folds. Samuel Halden, the deputy said. Samuel didn't run. He didn't stand. He just closed his eyes like he was stepping off a dock. I didn't do this, he whispered. They cuffed him anyway. They read the rights. They walked him through the door where everyone could see. The parking lot smelled like spilled gas and fried shrimp. Samuel blinked against the light. Reporters had arrived before the handcuffs. They always do. Did you kill your sister-in-law? Did you argue with her Tuesday night? Did you put her body in bags? Samuel's jaw worked. No words came out. They put him in the back of the cruiser. Through the glass, he met a camera lens and tried to look like a person. It didn't work. Across town, sirens rolled toward the Halden house. Neighbors poured onto lawns again. Prayers stacked like bricks in the air. Richard stood on the grass, the Bible clutched like a life preserver. He nodded when someone touched his shoulder. He wept when someone said Evelyn's name. He watched the cruiser glide past with his brother inside. His mouth moved without sound. A deacon said, "Justice." A mother said, "God help those kids." A teenager said, "I knew it. I knew Sam would snap." Nora Vance didn't say anything at all. She watched the house. She watched the faces. She watched a single drop of something pale slide down the inside of a garbage bin, then vanish into the lip. "Get the bins," she said quietly. Both and the drain trap. They booked Samuel at 5:06 p.m. Fingerprints. Mugshot. Shoelaces taken. Belt, too. He asked for a lawyer. He got one. "Tell me everything," the lawyer said. Samuel did. He told it badly. In loops, with missing pieces and too much feeling. "I bought brake cleaner Monday," he said. "They'll say it was bleach," the lawyer said. "I was at the marina Tuesday. Then Mickey's asked." "We asked," the lawyer said. "It's soft." "I didn't hurt her," Samuel said. His voice fell apart on the last word. The lawyer's pen stopped. "Then who did?" he asked. Samuel stared at the table. He opened his mouth. "Closed it." He shook his head. In the evidence room, bagged items multiplied. Contractor bags from the canal. A hacksaw blade wrapped in plastic, pulled from a storm catch 2 blocks down. Fibers. Hair. A dozen small certainties that pointed like arrows to the same target. A market receipt that lived in a truck's cup holder like a confession. A smear of blood too stubborn for upholstery. A neighbor's memory hardened into fact. The case began to feel inevitable. Inevitability is lazy. It misses things. Nora stayed late. She spread everything across a table and cleaned it with questions. Timeline. Rain bands. Phone pings. Camera clocks that drifted after the power blink. She circled 10:34 p.m. Power flicker. All clocks advanced when the power returned. Except one. The Halden microwave. It blinked 12 for hours. No one said it. No one had time. She wrote another small note. Microwave left blinking. Why? She underlined why twice. It didn't make the world give up any secrets. She opened the manila envelope again. She read the letter at her desk under buzzing fluorescent light. Cold words. Warm implications. A truth she'd seen tear people in half and make them smile anyway. She closed the file. She didn't look at the clock. She knew it would be cruel. Quick check-in. If you're certain Sam did it, say it out loud. If you're not, ask yourself what you'd need to see to change your mind. Then keep watching. We're not done. Thursday night, the church held a vigil. Candles. Hymns. A great is thy faithfulness that shook the rafters. Richard stood and spoke in a voice that sounded like it had walked through fire. She loved this town, he said. She loved our children. She loved God. He paused. He let the silence do the work. It did. From the back, Samuel's public defender watched the room. She watched the way people leaned when Richard spoke. She watched heads tilt like flowers toward the sun. She wrote one word in her notebook, charm. After the service, a teen choir girl with mascara stars on her cheeks hugged Richard too tight. He hugged back. Everyone watched. Everyone felt better. Detective Vance stood at the side door and studied stained glass angels. She wasn't a churchgoer. She respected the quiet. She didn't trust what lives in it. On her way out, she paused at a bulletin board. Food pantry hours. Vacation Bible school signups. A small flyer for a blood drive, 3 weeks past. A scribbled note on it in quick hand. "Oh, neg." She tore the corner off the flyer and slipped it into her notebook. Not evidence. Just a thread. Friday morning broke too bright. Grief always looks worse in good light. The lab called at 8:22 a.m. The blood under Samuel's seat matched Evelyn. The fibers in the contractor bag matched a roll found in his truck bed. The receipt in his cup holder matched the store's tape. The cashier remembered the scar across the knuckle. Nora asked which knuckle. The cashier shrugged. Left hand? Maybe right. I'm not a knuckle person. The marina called at 9:10 a.m. Found a trash bag jammed behind a piling. Same brand. Same knot. Same story. A deputy called at 9:47 a.m. Found a cutting board under the Halden. Kitchen sink with a shallow groove fresh, enough to shine under oblique light. No visible blood. But bleach can only bully so much. At 10:03 a.m., the DA's office said, "We're ready." At 10:19 a.m., the order came down. Pick up Samuel Halden. Charge him with murder, which is exactly where we began. Samuel dragged from his truck. Faced a hot hood. Cameras feeding on the scene. Richard on the lawn, Bible in his hands. The picture of a widower who did everything right and lost everything anyway. Detective Vance stood in the doorway and watched the small machine of justice start to hum. Wheels catching. Gears grinding. Everything moving the direction it was built to go. She looked down at the evidence crate waiting by her foot. Contractor bags. Cloth. A letter in a manila envelope. She picked up the letter. She turned it once in her hands. She slid it back into the box without opening it again. Her phone buzzed. A text from the crime lab, prelim on a faint trace from the kitchen grout. Not bleach. Not lemon. Peppermint oil. Church brand. Tiny detail. Nothing, maybe. Or the start of something. Nora glanced at the Halden lawn. A breeze caught a scrap of bulletin on the grass and flipped it twice. She didn't move to pick it up. She let the wind do what it wanted. She stepped off the porch. She stopped. She looked back once at the microwave. Blinking 12 through the kitchen. Window like a lighthouse that forgot what direction to warn. She made a note. Not for the file. For herself. Stop believing the first story that fits. She closed her notebook. She walked toward the sirens. Detective Nora Vance didn't go home. She spread the case across a steel table and stared until the clutter started talking. Timeline. Rain bands. Doorbell cam at 10:27. Power blink at 10:34. Truck rolling at 11:12. The kitchen. Too clean. Too careful. She opened the evidence crate and found the thing that kept itching. A damp microfiber. Cloth bagged from the Halden pantry. Citrus. And under it, peppermint oil. Not the grocery kind. A sharp, churchy kind. She thumbed the corner of a torn flyer from the church. Bulletin board. Blood drive. Notice she'd pocketed at the vigil. At the bottom, someone had scribbled in quick hand, "Oneg?" It meant nothing. It meant everything. She flipped open her notebook to a fresh page and wrote, "Peppermint oil, source? Church? Who has keys? Microwave blinking, why not reset? Receipt in Sam's truck, thermal reprint? Not type on bags?" The questions lined up like suspects. Calvary Grace Church, supply closet. Friday, 7:12 p.m. The hallway smelled like hymn books and mop water. Nora followed it to a metal door scarred with old tape and new prayers. "Who has access?" she asked the church secretary. "Only staff," the woman said. "Keys?" "Pastor Halden, me, the custodian. Youth director." Inside, metal shelves. Paper plates. Folding candles. A box labeled anointing and oils with a cheap label maker strip. She lifted the lid. Little amber bottles in rows. Lavender, frankincense, cedar. One slot empty. Peppermint. On the inside of the lid, a faded sticker. Calvary Grace, Family Ministry, Peppermint Oil. A ministry supply, not something you'd buy at the market. The exact scent from the cloth in the Halden pantry. "Do you log withdrawals?" Nora asked. The secretary hesitated. "Pastor takes what he needs. We restock on Mondays." "Did anyone else check things out this week?" "No, it's been quiet since the storm." Nora bagged the box lid as a reference sample. She walked the hall, eyes on the floor. Peppermint oil stains don't glow, but a habit does. On a corkboard by the youth room, a sign-up sheet for a men's retreat. At the bottom, scrawled under next Thursday's packing list, Remember, demo on knots, square. Granny Clove, Pastor R. She wrote it down. Lab, 8:30 p.m. Show me how you tied them, Nora said. The tech held up a contractor bag from the canal, gloved finger tracing the knot. Not fisherman's. Not Granny. A tight, practiced double square with the tails tucked and cinched. Clean. Habitual. Most folks just yank and wrap, the tech said. Whoever did this cared about the knot. Or teaches them, Nora said softly. She stared at the bag. Then at the note in her book. Remember demo on knots. Pastor R. Coincidence was cheap. Pattern was expensive. If you see it too, don't scroll. We're about to test every obvious piece of evidence. Mark it on Cypress Avenue, 9:14 p.m. The cashier was closing a drawer of crumpled bills when Nora held up the receipt found in Samuel's truck. Remember this? Nora asked. The woman squinted. Contractor bags, bleach, duct tape, 1 hacksaw blade. Monday night, 9:12 p.m., paid cash. Do your receipts ever get reprinted? Only the manager can do that. How can you tell if a receipt's a fresh print or a reprint? Reprints have a microline by the footer. You need to tilt it. Nora tilted. A ghost line surfaced at the bottom. Reprint in hair-thin type. Nearly invisible unless you were looking. This isn't a live receipt, Nora said. It's a duplicate pulled after the fact. The cashier frowned. Customers don't ask for reprints unless they lost one. Anyone ask this week? The cashier thought. A guy in a ball cap came in Tuesday afternoon. Said he needed a copy for his records. Cash purchase, bags and cleaner. The manager printed it to be nice. Description? Taller than me. Maybe 6 foot. Cap low, hoodie. He had a wedding ring and a pale scar along this knuckle. She tapped her right index finger. Left or right hand? She laughed. I don't catalog hands for a living. Was he alone? Yes. Voice? Soft, pastory, like soothing. Nora didn't smile. She thanked her and left the store with a reprint of the reprint. Manager ID stamped at the bottom. If the receipt in Samuel's truck was a duplicate, printed after Evelyn disappeared, it didn't prove he bought anything. It proved someone wanted it to look like he did. Back at the station, she spread out the camera stills. Doorbell cam, hooded figure. 10:07 and 10:11. Church lot cam, Samuel's truck at 8:43 p.m. Neighbor's glance, truck idling at 10:19 p.m. The 11:12 p.m. vehicle? Everyone had called it a truck. No one had zoomed the one camera that mattered. The bakery across from the Halden home, its window acting like a dull mirror. She called the owner. He flipped the monitor around and scrubbed the feed. At 11:12 p.m., a boxy shape slid through the reflection. Not a pickup. A van. Commercial length. White paint. On the door, a ghosted block of letters reversed in the glass. Wyverlock. She read it backwards, slow as a child. Calvary. Freeze, she said. Print 3 copies. Calvary Grace had 2 vans. One for seniors, one for youth. Only staff had keys. She checked the van logs. The page for Tuesday night was blank. The GPS unit had been pulled last month for repair. No fix yet. Who has the keys? She asked the secretary again. Pastor Halden, she said. Anyone else? The youth director. He's out of town for a conference. Custodian? His set broke last week. He's waiting on replacements. Nora wrote, Calvary van, 11:12 p.m. Who drove? Saturday morning. Interview room. Samuel looked worse. Sleep had poured sand in his eyes. Help me help you, his lawyer said. Why is there Evelyn's blood in your truck? Nora asked. I don't know, Samuel said. You bought contractor bags. I didn't. We have a receipt. I didn't buy those, he said. Then why is the receipt in your truck? He looked at the table. He looked at his hands. He looked like a man watching a house fire from across the street. I don't know. You were near the Halden house at 10. People know my truck. They see what they want. Were you there? No, he said. Yes, his eyes admitted for a blink, like a bad train schedule slipping. Where exactly? The marina, he muttered. Anyone see you? No one looks at me, detective. That's the problem. She slid the church van photo across the table. Recognize this? He squinted. Church van? At 11:12 p.m. A van that looks like this rolled past your brother's house. So? So who drives it at night? The pastor, Samuel said without thinking. Then, and the youth guy, and the custodian on Wednesdays. Nora watched his face. He hadn't realized he'd said it until he heard it out loud. Silence pressed its thumb into the room. She stood. We're done for now. Search warrant. Calvary Grace Church. Baptistry closet, choir loft, van bay. The youth van sat under dust like a sleeping whale. Crime scene techs wore booties in patience. They brushed the floor, the door handles, the rails of the folding seats. Luminol isn't dramatic in daylight. In the dim bay, it lifted old stories off the rubber, smears, arcs, a drag line curving from the van door to the drain. Old? New? Hard to say until the lab whispered the dates. On a high shelf in the baptistry closet, behind spare robes and a cracked music stand, a crate. Inside, random summer camp junk, glow sticks, twine, a roll of Calvary Grace, wristbands from last year's serve. Day, black silicone with white letters. One wristband was smeared with something brown-black in the grooves. The quick test would say human blood. The lab would say whose. Behind the crate, a cheap amber bottle. Peppermint oil. The family ministry label half-peeled, oil tacky on the edge. Fingerprints love oil. So do juries. On the work table by the van bay, tools. Socket set. Half a roll of duct tape. A single hacksaw blade wrapped in a paper towel like a bandage. The exact make the market sold. One tooth missing near the tip, consistent with the ragged drag marks on Evelyn's long bones. Nora didn't celebrate. She just kept looking. In the choir loft, under the alto pew, a crushed paper triangle like the corner of a bag. Brute brand. Same as the canal bags. Not much. But cases are built on not much. She filed every not much into a stack named enough. Still with me? If you've switched suspects by now, say it in your head. You're about to see why the first story was so convincing and why it's wrong. At the Halden home, the second warrant felt like a betrayal to everyone but Nora. The kids had been taken to an aunt's. The house felt vacant, like grief had lifted the furniture and left the outline. In the kitchen, the microwave still blinking 12 lie, stubborn as a metronome that forgot the song. Every other clock had been reset. Phones, oven, thermostat. Why leave one blinking? Nora murmured. Because you never use it? A tech offered. Because you staged after a power blink and didn't know this one resets? Another said. Nora knelt by the baseboard where paint looked a shade too new. She pressed a finger along the joint. Tackiness gone. The gloss of hair off. Oblique light across the tile picked up trace. Cleaner swirl arcs. Edges bright where bleach had bullied. Between grout lines, a whisper the lab had texted already. Peppermint. Under the sink, behind the cleaning bottles and the manila envelope, a small plastic tub. Inside, Calvary Grace serves wristbands, a half roll of black contractor bags, and a lotto ticket stuck to a strip of duct. Tape with somebody's pocket lint. She bagged it all. Finally, in the master closet, a suit bag. Inside the bag, nothing. In the bag's bottom seam, where the lining had torn and been restitched, something that didn't belong. A crescent of plastic from a hacksaw blade wrapper with the market's SKU. She didn't say got you. She called for the photographer. You can prove a murder with blood and blades. You convict with motive. Nora took the manila envelope back to her desk and opened it like a confession someone had mailed to themselves. 2 lab logos. Kinship analysis. Clinical words with emotional shrapnel. Conclusion. Tested male R. Halden is not the biological father of subjects A.E. Extended analysis, paternal relative. Match, first-degree male relative. Consistent with paternity. A father. Not him. His father. Nora stared at the sentence until the letters went strange. She had seen people killed for less. She had seen people forgive more. She made 2 calls, one to the medical archive at a clinic where the elder, Halden, had been treated, 2 years before his death, one to the DA to warn them they were about to step on a mine named motive. Can you run a kinship comparison to stored samples? She asked the clinic. The nurse hesitated. Legally, with a warrant. I have one. We'll do what we can, the nurse said. It wouldn't be fast. But Nora didn't need fast yet. She needed enough to walk into a room and ask the right questions in the right order. Pastor Richard Halden, Sunday suit, Friday face. He sat with quiet hands and a Bible on the table. He looked like a painting titled Widower with Faith. Grief fit him like a black tie. Thank you for coming, Nora said. I'll do anything to help you find who did this, he said. We've been at the church, she said. He blinked. We had a vigil, he said. And a warrant, she said.
Silence settled, polite and cold.
We found peppermint oil that matches residue in your kitchen, she said. We use peppermint oil in children's ministry, he said. We found a hacksaw blade in the van bay, same make as one purchased Monday. Many people use the vans, he said. Not Tuesday at 11:12 p.m., she said, and slid the mirrored bakery still across the table. The letters Calvary ghosted bright in reverse. He studied it. He didn't touch it. Is that our van? He asked softly. Looks like it, Nora said. Looks like it isn't his, he said. We also found a reprinted market receipt in your brother's truck, Nora said. Reprinted the day after your wife disappeared. Samuel had the receipt, Richard said. Someone put it there, Nora said. She waited. He didn't blink. Tell me about Tuesday night, she said. I fell asleep on the couch, he said. When did you wake? Around midnight. After the power blink? We lost power. You didn't notice your microwave? He swallowed. I don't use it much. She tilted her head. You're careful, she said. You clean your baseboards. You scrub grout. You held a vigil before the autopsy cooled. You remember God's verses by heart. But you didn't notice a blinking clock in the kitchen. You walk through a dozen times a day? He folded his hands tighter. Detective, he said, I think grief makes people miss things. She let the silence sit until it got heavy. She slid the manila envelope onto the table like a body. He didn't look at it. He looked at her. Something in his eyes recoiled before his face could. You received this earlier in the week, she said. What is it? A letter, he said. From? A lab, he said. What lab? He sighed. The sound of a man who had climbed a hill and found it was the wrong one. 2 labs, he said. 4? My son, our children. Pastor, Nora said, voice level. The letter says you are not the biological father of any of your 5 children. It also says the biological father is a first-degree male relative of yours. Your father. The room emptied. Not of people. Of air. He stared at the envelope like it was a snake coiled on his Bible. I love my children, he said. I didn't ask if you didn't, Nora said. I love my wife. I didn't ask that either. He closed his eyes. When did you learn? A week ago. Who else knew? Just God, he whispered. And Evelyn. He flinched. Did your brother know? No? Did you tell him? No? Why did you teach knots on the men's retreat sign-up? Because I always do, he said. Why was there peppermint oil in your pantry and on your grout? Because we had ants. Why is there a hacksaw blade with the market SKU at your church? A drag pattern in the youth van. Calvary wristbands with blood in your baptistry closet. And a reprinted receipt in your brother's truck? Tiny thing, Nora said. People miss tiny things. You didn't miss any. Except one. He looked at the microwave through the one-way mirror. He looked back down. I wept with them, he said, voice far away. I buried their parents. I married their children. I was baptized in that water. I served. Evelyn was dismembered, Nora said. Plain words. No sermon. His mouth moved. No sound. Did you do it? Nora asked. He surprised both of them. He shook his head. Then he nodded. Then he said very clearly, I took her out of my home. As if out meant away and away meant not here, and none of those meant what the law says they mean. Tell me how the blood got in Samuel's truck, she said. I don't know what Samuel does, he said. She waited. He didn't fill the space. She reached into a folder and laid down the last picture. A still from the church, hallway camera near the supply closet, time-stamped Tuesday, 9:54 p.m. A man in a cap pulling a box labeled anointing and oils, head down, cap low, face shadowed. Wedding ring on the right hand, no, the image reversed, left hand. Pale scar on the right index knuckle visible. When he reached overhead to pull the box down. Pastor, she said, stand up. He stood. His chair whispered back across the floor. You're under arrest for the murder of Evelyn Halden. His hands went behind him like they knew the way. He didn't fight. He didn't quote scripture. He looked at the table where his Bible sat and said, What will my children believe? That you loved them, Nora said, because some mercies are cheap and some are necessary, and that you could not love like this and do what you did. They released Samuel 2 days later. No parade. No apology big enough. He walked out into the early evening like a man crawling out of a grave. He blinked at the light. He didn't smile. Where will you go? His lawyer asked. Not home, he said. I don't know what that is. At Calvary Grace, the pulpit went empty. A deacon read from Proverbs while the congregation looked at the place, where Richard's voice used to live. Half of them cried. The other half stared at their hands. The peppermint oil was gone from the supply closet. No one missed it. They missed everything else. Detective Nora Vance wrote the last line in her notebook. Never trust the cleanest room. She closed it and looked out over Willow Key as the Gulf went silver. The case wasn't pretty. It was true. If you made it this far, tell me, at what moment did you change your mind about who did it? Was it the van, the receipt, or the knot? And if you want more twisted true crime breakdowns told like this, don't scroll, save this and say which detail you caught first.